You are listening to The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending. Welcome back. I'm your host, Andrea Spearman, and this is The Black Landscape, where we engage with emerging and established Black leaders here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Learn how you can be a sponsor of this podcast later on in the episode. I'm your girl, Andrea Spearman, and I am a light-skinned Black woman with my dark brown curly hair up in a poof today. I'm wearing black and brown glasses and a burgundy sweater that reads, "Be you," a daily mantra, am I right? We are here with special guest, Ryan Thurston. Please describe yourself to the people.
Hey, I'm Ryan Thurston. I am a 5'10" Black man, browner skin, I got my tattoo shown because I got on a white t-shirt, short sleeve white t-shirt, some sweats, and my cozy shoes. I wear glasses, sometimes contacts, and yeah, I have hair on my head and face.
I have hair. Okay.
I am not bald.
Now, audiences, friends, and family who are out there, I only happened upon this wonderful emerging filmmaker earlier this year at a film showcase at Red Bay Coffee, Black owned, in Oakland. So before we dive into your film, let's go back to the beginning, Ryan. Talk to us about where you grew up and how you got into the creative arts.
Yeah, I grew up here in Oakland, born and raised Oakland. Well, okay, let's get technical. Hayward. Then I moved to Oakland. I'm currently in my grandparents' house where I was raised. Went to school in Berkeley. So I like to call myself somewhat of an East Bay kid because my parents divorced, and I went to San Leandro, Dublin, Berkeley High School, Oakland Elementary School, grandparents' house in Oakland, Alameda at one point. So just East Bay.
You a Bay pedestrian?
Yeah, 100%. 1000%. I grew up I was always into cartoons, always into like cartoons, anime, video games. Just one of those kids, people in high school call me like, you a Lupe Fiasco type dude, I was that type kid. Everybody had the Lupe Fiasco kind of kid.
You was cake pushing.
Yeah, I got into skateboarding. I wasn't really into sports. So my brother, who's 4 years older than me, I don't know, it was always like I was around sports, but I didn't identify with it. And I think cartoons specifically, cartoons and animation was always maybe an escape for me, a fantasy and imagination tool or a vessel for imagination. I didn't really get my hands on art until probably like high school when it was my junior year and my friend did theater and every year. And I was like, oh, why don't I I'll audition for a play. I don't know, why not? It seems cool. He just convinced me.
It is cool.
It is cool. It is
Us
cool.
theater kids are very cool.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't an athlete. I was just hanging out with the homies, and I was like, well, let me try something. I was like, I would always be around everybody, but and I was like, oh, this is mad fun. Just playing characters, being people, doing things, running around, projecting your voice, yelling. It was, I think, just a place for me to maybe express things I was feeling indirectly because I didn't necessarily feel like I fit in. I never was always the like different kid. So I could be myself, and it was a place through these characters, I could maybe express myself because I couldn't necessarily express myself in the world as myself for whatever reasons. That's a whole nother podcast. And yeah, I went to college in Philadelphia because, funny story, by the time I was 18 or going to college, I was strong words. I was like, I'm tired of the Bay. I don't like the Bay. I know everybody. Everybody's the same. I'm just tired of seeing
blasphemy.
The same thing. Yeah. But like, it was true. It was a feeling. It was like the Bay Area can be a small town, especially in the Catholic school circuit, the Berkeley High circuit. It was like, I felt like I'd like seen everything, and I was fascinated by New York, the East Coast, as other places. And my mom would always say, you got to go away to college to like find yourself. You got to find yourself. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to the East Coast. Bye. Ended up at Temple, where I thought I was going to be an architect engineer, but I was not. And found myself around the DMV DC kids,
Mm-hmm.
DC, Virginia, Maryland, all that. And they were like DJs, people, artists, you know, the creatives, and like, but I found myself gravitating to the personalities of the New York kids who would just say how you feel, do what you want, live your life, you know. And the
Mm-hmm.
different personalities being at Temple, it was the most diverse school in the nation at the time. It was 12 or 13% black, but for a non-HBCU of 30,000 kids, that's enough. You pretty much are in a HBCU with like other nationalities around you. And we were in Philly. So it was like a really
Right.
unique experience. And I just kind of found my way. I joined a frat, Kappa. I think that was it. I like,
Come on, Divine Nine.
yeah. Shout out the Noops, Lambda. And I think that was it. It was kind of like I had my core group of friends. We were doing things. We were around, going to other people's party. We were social, but then it was graphic design, making flyers for Kappa events, throwing parties, hosting parties, soirees. That kind of like, I didn't find myself through Kappa, but I think it was because I kind of like was comfortable with myself because I was a Cali kid in the East Coast. Once again, a
Mm-hmm.
different, I was a different kid. Having to put myself in a collective and then create for the collective, I guess, in a weird way that made sense. And I was like, okay, I get to define this organization on this campus, and like, what are programs I want to do? What are things I want to talk about? So I think that was the spark of creativity. And then I started throwing parties, making flyers, designing spaces. I was always like, I was a curator. I think I've always been a curator. I was also always into fashion. I was always the fly kid. I guess that's a piece I mentioned, that I was always like best dressed in high school. So I think it was always using myself as a vessel for creativity, and then people would be attracted to me maybe, and then I'd be able to pitch my ideas. And I never really had a set style because I was kind of a chameleon. So I was like, I could dress like a skater one day, dress like a nerd one day, dress like a jock one day, dress like, a business suit one day. And so I could just move in different rooms. So I felt like I was always able to go into different niches and clubs and groups and like, oh, what are y'all talking about? What are y'all talking about? So I just always had a perspective of the collective that I think fueled my inspiration. I was always inspired by people and places and the things I would do because I was always seeking not something new, but novelty, an interesting perspective. Maybe in that lack of self, being able to express myself, I found like pieces of myself in these different groups.
I love what you just said, a vessel for creativity. That means you have to pour into that specific idea of yourself.
Yeah, I think even to this day, I still say it all the time. It was whoever I'm around. I think it's a Black experience, code switching, but it's like it was never like I was becoming not me. It would be whoever I was around or whatever I was involved in. Aspects of myself, aspects of my maybe multifacetedness would come out, would emphasize.
Yeah.
I'm around the jocks, so I'm a little maybe more like stronger personality, cracking jokes a little more, yada. And I'm around the art kids, maybe I'm a little more quiet and sensitive. I'm with a bunch of women, like my women friends, and like, okay, maybe I'm a little more sensitive, or maybe I'm a little more in my masculine because I'm adding balance. I can feel the balance of energy. And around my male friends, I'm a little more sensitive. I'm like, how y'all feeling? What's going on? Like, so maybe it was a coping mechanism, maybe it was a survival tactic. I don't know, but it has kind of created the this is weird saying, peacock to chameleon, I think, in my art too. And when I started expressing myself in my own art. But yeah, after college, I was supposed to go to New York, but I didn't really apply myself enough. So I had to come back home. Yeah, I found myself back in the Bay Circuit. I was gone from 2009 to 2015. So I missed the whole tech boom. So I'm like, I left when tech was popping off and I was on the East Coast doing Instagram and all that stuff. Now I came back and I'm like, yo, it's mad different.
Yeah.
I'm
It
confused.
evolved so fast in that time.
So fast. but I was in Oakland, the arts never left Oakland. The
Never.
artistic creative class was never gone. I think it just permeates every couple of years, the people doing the art, and I came here and just did what I knew how to do from the East Coast. I met people, went to art shows, went to parties, started throwing parties.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a niche that I found here is in leaving the Bay, I was able to appreciate the Bay, but I also came back from having a different perspective on the East Coast. I could critique the Bay. I'd be like, what's going on here? What is everybody doing? What are we missing? Where's the, I felt like it was like starting to get popping and people were starting to go out, but I'm like, we're a bunch of weed smokers. We kind of want to lounge. We're not coming to the club to stand on tables like they do on the East Coast. We kind of want to smoke weed and chill. So I was like,
we're more chill over here.
Exactly.
At least, especially once you get past a certain age, you're like, okay, I'm done with my hyphy days.
Like that, I was 22, 23, 24, and I was like, oh, okay, we want to lounge. So I started throwing parties, and I was emphasis on just feeling niches, feeling voids. I think filling voids is maybe a through line also, aside from being a chameleon, feeling voids in the different niches I was in. A new perspectives, taking one perspective from one group, bringing it to another group and seeing how it resonates. And then, I've always been just kind of using my body, and I think I started making stuff. It would be through partnership. I'd always have creative collaborators that I would create an idea within. Let's do it together. Let's throw this party together. You and me, or you two people should do art together. Oh, I'll model, you style. It was always like a collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That made things dynamic, made things interesting. Because if it's just me, I'm getting high off my own supply. I'm like, and so I was like having someone else's maybe a feedback or someone else to bring different ideas. And that was kind of how I just creatively developed, found my way back to the Bay, and, just was always making stuff,
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question at all.
Yeah. So what led you to filmmaking? How did you specifically, because what you're telling me is you've been creative your whole life is what I just heard. And just steering that energy specifically, because you said you already had theater. So the on-camera experience, even though it's quite different from being on stage and being on camera, we know this, but how did you make that shift to filmmaking specifically versus on stage or other creative outlets?
Probably my major in school, I was a media production major. So I studied media, film, broadcasting, if you will. So I was, in the audio classes, in the video classes, doing things like that. And when I graduated, I was like, I want to get into advertising. I want to make ads. I think it was just fun to problem solve in a creative way, which I think is similar to architecture or engineering, which I originally wanted to go to school for. It was creative problem solving. And so I found myself in media production, and in trying to get a job at a ad agency with no experience, no internships in that specifically, I found it hard. So I think, what did I do? I got kind of slipped into film, slipped into commercials through a friend. I think I was working at a loan servicing agency as telephone customer service person. And I left that because I started doing commercial modeling and acting through a friend who just brought me to an audition because they needed a ride. And they were like, you can audition too. And so I was like, okay. And I booked the audition. And I was like,
come on, booked.
It's I walked in there not knowing what's going on. And they were like, we like you. And then his agent was like, we like you. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. I guess I'm handsome. And
he is. Don't let him fool y'all.
Thanks, mom and dad. Blessed to a degree. Yeah, from there, I was on sets, seeing how film work. I think being observant. This is another niche demographic of filmmakers, I guess, and commercial makers. And I was either being talent, being like, hey, I'm interested in working on set. If you ever need somebody, call me. I found out what a PA was, and I would just talk to people. Like everything I've ever gotten is from talking to people, from just putting myself out there, saying, hey, I'll work pro bono for a day. I'll put in the work. Just get me on set. Throw me in the fire. You need somebody, call me. Here's my number. Cool. And the first gig I did to get me behind the camera was I went to New York, and my friends were like, hey, you want to come on set? We're working today. You want to just come be a PA? And I was like, sure. And like, you can use it on your resume. And then I did it and then talked to the director, and they said, oh, I know a few people in Cali. I'll send their email to you, send you their email, something. And then it was like, one day somebody called me,
There you go.
And I was like, yeah, I'll call out of work and do it, whatever. In my job at the time, I was working at this company that would make its own media. And I kind of wiggled my way into the media production, managing the schedule of the photographer. Like it's all finesse. It's all like being nice, waiting your time, patience, and just like, yo, I'm available. What's up? And then let it go. Let God do the work.
Yes.
Then I just ended up on sets, and then I was like, okay, being a PA is cool, but I'm not making enough. I eventually quit my job because I was doing a string of I booked a few commercials. Had a few PA jobs, and I was like, okay, I think, and my job was kind of pushing me out at the time because they were downsizing. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna wait for y'all to let me quit. I'm gonna just dip and go do these acting gigs. And then I was just on that, it was like learning on the fly, being on set. What do I do? Okay, smile, stand like this. Okay, I'm learning from my mistakes. From there, I saw the industry, and I learned and observed the industry. Then I was a PA. Then I started talking to the stylists and being like, hey, if you ever need a stylist, call me. I'm open, because in my being talent, I would I would bring my own clothes sometimes to the styling day. And they're like, oh my God, you have great clothes. All these options are beautiful. And I was like, oh, I mean, I can style too. What's up? Holla if you ever need someone. And then one day somebody called me, and I was like, okay, yeah, and thrown in the fire. Here's $2,000. Call these stores, see if you can rent some clothes and buy things that are black and white. Okay. Hey, can I do a wardrobe pool? What is that? And so I became a stylist, and that was, stylist, you're working with the actors, you're working with the talent, you're creating the characters. And I think that gave me a understanding of creating characters while also being talent sometimes. Like, okay, they're dressing me up in this suit and button up. I am the black tech employee. Okay, cool. I know my role. Be that role. So I think it's all the little moments of just feedback and observing, and eventually just was like, I have stories to tell. I just had a bunch of friends that were photographers and were like, let's do a test shoot. I have this random idea. And I think I was always good at not convincing people, but catalyzing other people's imagination with my ideas. I'm a good pitcher. Maybe that's from advertising. Maybe that's from, I don't really know. Maybe that's just knowing how to talk to people. But I'd be like, hey, I got this idea of doing this weird thing, yada, yada. And it was coming from it always comes from a humble place of I have this idea. It's kind of weird. I don't know if it'll work. But if you're down, and people would be down. And so then we just try things. And I think that was the start of my experimenting in creating characters through styling, through photos, and then commercials, creating characters on video, seeing the results, seeing how it did. And then you started working on movie sets. And so I'm seeing how the film process works, watching movies, being in tune with my emotions and kind of what I was feeling, and trying to find a way to express myself, maybe non-verbally or abstractly. Like I said earlier, when I didn't know how to express myself. So I found myself in theater using those vessels to express myself through other characters. It was oh, if I this idea, I can express what I'm feeling. You know, it'd always be when I got images back or footage back, I'd be like, oh, that's what I was doing. Every day I got dressed to be like, oh, I'm feeling kind of emo. That's why I'm wearing all black. Oh, okay. It was partially exploration that led me into just telling stories. I don't necessarily know if I'm a filmmaker yet, but I'm a storyteller through whatever medium best tells the story or I have access to.
Absolutely. That is so great to hear your inspiration of wanting to tell stories and narratives. Right now, we're going to take a short break. To catch up on a previous episode of The Black Landscape, download on Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, and Google Podcasts. When we come back, we will hear more from Ryan Thurston and talk about his film, Self. We are back, and if you like what you hear, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments of our social media pages. We want to hear from you. So we're back with Ryan. Let's get into your film, Self. It explored the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, on a single Black man. Of course, we all can relate to that time of being stuck in the house, but what was your intention on sharing this specific journey?
Funny enough, the film was not necessarily about COVID. I think my word for the day is clearly vessel. It used COVID as a means to an end, but it was really about when the things we use to cope stop numbing us. It is about that wall of self-discovery of, trying, we all have these things that make us get through our day. And what happens when those things aren't getting us through our day anymore? And I think COVID was a collective example of like, every life stopped. Like you couldn't go to the bar, you couldn't dive into work, you couldn't go to the gym. Whatever your coping mechanism, whatever your addiction is, whatever your vice or virtue is, we're done here. And I just was hearing stories of people, of my friends and family, of like, the first few weeks they were like, I was drinking at the house, I was chilling, like everybody was kind of partying in the crib, And then everyone's getting their EPP, what was the thing?
PPA?
PPA, yeah, the PPA loans and the money, and everybody was buying clothes and spending money. And it was like, but then eventually I noticed people were like, people were like starting to get sad. Like the undertone underneath it was like, there's some real like loss and like uncertainty of life that we're all feeling. And I personally went through like kind of my dark night of the soul during 2020. For all the astrology buffs, my Saturn return was 2020. So I felt like I was going through my personal like shedding. Everything I thought I was not working. I had a relationship I was in failed. And it was just my whole life stopped, and I saw other people's life stop in different ways. And the story kind of came from just those stories of other people, putting them together and using myself as a vessel, using film as a vessel to tell the story of coming back to self. And like, that wall we hit. And I read this book that was like, that said, God can begin to work when human capacity reaches its limits.
Oh, say a word.
And it's like when we've done all we can, there's nothing more we can do. That's when God can show up. And I think that's what it was about when the video games, the food, the gluttony, the sloth, the laziness, the vice, like all these 7 deadly sins.
You're spinning right now. You spin.
These things stop getting us through. What do we have to come back to? Self. And I it's not necessarily. And I watched it at the festival we were at, and I was like, everybody thinks it's about COVID, and that's funny, but it's like it applies to everyone's personal experience of that. Some people have it at 16, some people have it at 45. I had it at 29. And, I think people can relate to the wave of tech layoffs all these people who that was their job, now they don't have a job. They're unemployed. Like, I think they
Mm-hmm.
can relate to this story because those people are in the house right now trying to figure it out. They have a severance package. They have a severance package. They have the time. What are you going to do now? Somebody who is in a divorce can relate to this film because, like, you're home alone now. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it was
Like,
a lot of separations happening.
like, I think if you look at the film, not in a COVID perspective, you take out all the references to COVID-19, it's about just somebody who is hitting a wall and doesn't know how to get out.
Mm-hmm.
That was what inspires it. It was my personal journey, but then also the journeys of others that COVID brought us on. But I had heard stories of people going through these type of things, the dark night of the soul, the like rock bottom, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
the shadow work, all these terms, all these metaphysical and spiritual and religious terms for the same thing, that same phenomenon. And I just wanted to depict it and let people know, no matter how low you get, you still have you.
Mm.
And it always comes down to you. And going into that darkness is not death. It is, you got to dig deep. You got to see yourself. You got to see yourself at your rawest form in order to know who you really are.
And whose you are.
Whose you are, what we're here for, why we're here, the blessing, like, you are enough to just exist. Just existing is enough. You don't have to
Yes.
be creating, doing, wanting, not wanting. You can just, it's okay to just sit in your bed today and feel what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. It was such a phenomenal movie that, man, I felt was too short. When it was over, I said, oh no, it's over. But it was such a great ending, that release of stepping back outside and into the light again.
Life,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a real piece because I found myself, when I was going through my stuff, I started gardening. Something was telling me, God was telling me, it was like I was seeing memes and like, yo, I need to garden. I need to find a community garden. Like, I need to find a community garden. I found one, and there was an elder named Lumaconda who was there. And as soon as I walked in, he just looked at me with his like almost blood red eyes, and he just saw through my whole soul. And it was a humbling experience. And I just picked up a shovel and was like, what do you need? What do you need? And like, very spiritual experience of just like, I've learned so much about myself and the world through gardening. So that was my like tribute to discovering my vitality through interacting with beings, living things, not objects. When you get lost, you can just walk outside your house and look at a plant, look at a bee, look at a hummingbird, look at the grass, look at the clouds. And if you sit long enough, something will happen.
Yes.
And I think that's what it was about. Him, not to give away, to him laying on the grass and crying. It was like that. It was that moment of ecstasy, natural ecstasy through connection with life.
Do you think you'll show that film again in a public forum, or?
Yeah. I want to. I don't know if I want to put it on YouTube or if I want to just keep it when people ask to see it or like when there's a chance to see it. I don't like, I'm very much on timing, and I'm just, respect to all the manifestors out there. I am not a manifester. I am a time wizard, if you will. Right place, right time. Am I open to the experience? And I think it's one of those pieces that when people need it, people will want to see it. And maybe that's when I'll put it on YouTube. So, but I don't know. I think, that's something I'm personally with my art. I'm realizing like I make so much art that I rarely put anything out. And I'm trying to figure out my relationship with releasing my art to the public, so people can find it. Because I think it's important that some of the things I make, but we'll see. If people just tell people to DM me if you want to see it, and I send it to friends. Like, oh, I want to see your movie again. I'll send you the link. You can watch it. It's a private link, but like you can watch it.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I like people experiencing it.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to be said for keep holding art a little bit more gently and more closely than for it to be just immediately accessible.
Yeah. I'm a purist in that sense of,
Okay, well, y'all heard him. Reach out. You got to reach out.
Holla at me. I'll
I'm
send
like,
you the link.
there's some trailers and little clips of it
You can
out in the
find it.
world, but yeah, I suggest y'all reach out and find him. So besides Self, what else is coming up for you? What's coming up next?
Well, actually, yesterday I just released a music video that I did for an artist I've been doing creative direction for. It's my first music video. It's like a narrative music video. It tells a story. It's another, I don't know, I think my videos are tributes. I think it's really nice. It's a little darker, a little edgier, but it tells a story of love. It has moments of like, I don't know, there's this one moment I'm really proud of. I'm going to speak on it. It starts with the elder at the garden that I worked at, just staring into the camera. And I don't know, something about, it was the same moment of when I met him and he just looked at me and stared at me. I just wanted to put that on camera, and I wanted anybody who watch it, that's the first thing you see is this like elder black man looking at you, seeing through you, seeing you seeing him. And I think, we don't often see that. How many of us, don't have grandfathers, don't have fathers, don't have elders in our life? And I think that maybe was my gift to the Black community of like, here's someone I deeply respect that has helped change my life. Looking at you and like reminding you have grandparents that are always watching you, watching over you. But other than that, it's a great music video. Y'all should watch it. His name is Reggie Becton. The song is called Sad Boy, and it's on YouTube right now. So,
Awesome. Okay, y'all, get on over there and watch it. Yes, so, Ryan, It's been very lovely getting to know you better. Tell the audiences where they can find you.
Yes.
Even though you said you don't really be on the interwebs like that, tell them where they can find you anyway.
I'll be on the interwebs. I just don't share everything on the interwebs. But yeah,
there you go.
I'm really only on Instagram at Sir SIR Thurston THURSTON. I links to my other stuff too. Oh yeah, I'll also be acting too. So if any of y'all want films and will have films and need an actor, I am an actor. But you can reach me there. You can reach me on my email, ryanalexthurston@gmail.com. Holla at me. I would give my phone number up, but that's crazy.
No.
I think I did it at the festival too. I'm like, just holla at me, man. But yeah, Sir Thurston on social media is where you can find me and what I'm doing in my day-to-day shenanigans.
We love shenanigans here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ryan's links will be in the caption, show notes, as well as our sponsors today. Tap in and support Black creativity. Thank you all out there for listening and supporting another season. Again, leave a review of the show on Apple Podcasts or in the comments of our social media pages. This has been another episode of The Black Landscape with Andrea Spearman, where Black excellence is always trending.